Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
So I'm going to read this paper now. This is the scripture reading. I repeat, let no one think that I'm a fool. But if you do, then accept me as a fool, so that I too may boast a little. What I am saying in regard to this boastful confidence, I am saying not with the Lord's authority, but as a fool. Since many boast according to human standards, I will also boast. For you gladly put up with fools, being wise yourselves. For you put up with it when someone makes slaves of you, or preys upon you, or takes advantage of you, or puts on airs, or gives you a slap in the face. To my shame, I must say, we are too weak for that. But whatever anyone dares to boast of, I am speaking as a fool. I dare to boast of that. Are they Hebrews? So am I. Are they Israelites? So am I. Are they descendants of Abraham? So am I. Are they ministers of Christ? I am talking like a madman. I am a better one. And far greater labors, far more imprisonments, with countless floggings, and often near death. 5 times I have received from the Jews the 40 lashes minus 1. 3 times I was beaten with rods. Once I received a stoning. 3 times I was shipwrecked. For a night and a day I was adrift at sea, on frequent journeys, in danger from rivers, danger from bandits, danger from my own people, danger from Gentiles, danger in the city, danger in the wilderness, danger at sea, danger from false brothers and sisters, in toil and hardship, through many a sleepless night, hungry and thirsty, often without food, cold and naked. And besides other things, I am under daily pressure because of my anxiety for all the churches. Who is weak and I am not weak? Who is made to stumble and I am not indignant? If I must boast, I will boast of the things that show my weakness. To keep me from being too elated, a thorn was given me in the flesh, a messenger of Satan to torment me, to keep me from being too elated. 3 times I appealed to the Lord about this, that it would leave me. But he said to me, my grace is sufficient for you. My power is made perfect in weakness. So I will boast all the more gladly of my weakness, so that the power of Christ may dwell in me. Therefore I am content with weakness, insults, hardship, persecutions, and calamities for the sake of Christ. For whenever I am weak, then I am strong. God's word for God's people.
May our hearts hear and our lives respond.
The title on the slide, Vulnerability Accomplishes All, is not exactly the same as the one in your bulletin, which I think says Vulnerability Conquers All. And I don't know how that happened, except when I discovered it, I said to Tony, don't change it, because I think I like your title better than mine. I picked the Conquers one because it's such an important concept that our vulnerability is what changes everything. And so I like the juxtaposition of vulnerability and conquers. But in the back of my head, I was thinking, but that's kind of warlike. And that's not really what I'm trying to say. And somehow, by grace, Tony figured out what it was I was trying to say, and this is it. That it's our vulnerability that accomplishes everything. As Paul says, through Christ, our weakness makes us strong. Because when we're weak, we're not relying on our puny selves, we're relying on God. This picture there, you see it? When I was in 3rd grade, my congregational church used to give all the 3rd graders Bibles. That was back in the day when the rows were packed with little kids. And so we all got an NSV Bible. And there were pictures in it. And I was a good reader in 3rd grade, so I could read it. But the pictures were so cool, very beautiful. And this one just grabbed my heart. And it still does because of the vulnerability in that picture. There's Paul, leader of the church, person, and you heard his litany of being whipped, being lost at sea, being hungry, being cold, being naked, being stoned. And there's that great story of how they hauled him out of the city, stoned him, left him for dead. His disciples come out, he comes to, and it goes right back inside that city. His courage, his personal strength and ability to go to strange places where he didn't know anyone and no one knew Christ, and to speak with such authenticity about Jesus amazes me. But this picture shows how, and he tells that story in our reading about in Damascus, the ruler was looking for him, wanting to seize him, and he escaped. And the way he was escaped, this helps those of us who are having a hard time, because even Paul was once a basket case. There he is, sitting in that basket. They made him better in those days, huh? And being let down hand over hand by people. And you see, there he is, clinging, sitting in that basket, clinging literally for dear life. And I'm sure praying, whoa, I hope the guard doesn't see me as I'm slipping down in the night. And his friends, you know, you say the first guy behind him, the ones that, but here were people up there because, you know, you've heard that expression, he's not heavy, he's my brother. Well, brothers are kind of heavy. And so there's more than one guy up there holding that rope, trying not to let it slip through their hands. And if anybody's ever held a rope with something heavy on the other end, I grew up and have had a steer at the other end, you know how precarious that is and how hard, if you don't happen to have on work gloves, that is on your hand. But there are those guys doing it because they're helping him get to safety. So, and of course they're doing it at personal risk, because if you get caught letting a fugitive, helping a fugitive escape, what happens to you? So here is a Christian community of love, daring to be vulnerable, like Paul, and daring to rise to the occasion and be courageous and work hard and change everything. Because if he hadn't escaped, we would never, for one thing, have had the letter we read this morning, a part of it we read, that encourages all of us to trust in our own vulnerability. In our culture, that is so hard to do, because it is made clear everywhere you turn that you should have the right clothes, you should have the right words, you should be self-sufficient. A lot of us are so good, we really are good, at reaching out and helping. But I cannot begin to tell you how much trouble I have when I try to get one of us to accept a little help. That's a way harder sell. And what I always try to say is, please, what you are doing when you accept a little help is modeling for all of us that this is exactly how God works. Sometimes you can give. Sometimes, by God, you do need a little help. You do need someone to hang out and visit you because you're too lonely or you're in the hospital, or maybe you're just too sick to get up and make your own food, or maybe you just lost your job, or maybe you just moved and you're looking for a job, or maybe you are so depressed despite your good intention, just moving is difficult, and so those things you're supposed to do are not getting done and they're piling up and you feel terrible. But heaven forbid, when someone calls and says, I'm just checking, how are you? Oh, I'm fine. When we're not fine. We live, breathe, grow lives to the power of God. And it does make a difference. It makes a power-filled difference when we say, yeah, I cannot do it on my own. I need other people. And that's how we know God's there, for crying out loud. We do send up our prayers, and some of us get to hear or feel these moments of connection. And others of us go long, long periods of time without being sure that our prayers are received. And what God intends is for us to know our prayers are received through the power of caring. And some of that is only possible when we dare to say, I'm so worried about this. I'm so whatever. But, and you don't have to blab it to everybody, but there's got to be someone to your right or your left that you can trust, that you can call, that you can begin to share with. And that makes all the difference. Paul was not able to go on to his ministry to continue if he didn't have help. And this letter that he wrote, what we hear today, is happening at a really difficult juncture for him, because he is a brave missionary. He's been all these places. He keeps in contact with churches by letters, by emissaries. He's sending them back and forth. All those ways, he's in touch with these churches. But at that time, faith was a pretty, well, at that time, at this time, always, faith can be a very unstable thing. And we all want leaders who will tell us all the black and white answers. This is how it is. That is how it is. Not develop a relationship with God. That part about love your neighbor, I really meant that. Sometimes people can let go of that because someone says, well, here's the rule. If you see someone who is not obeying this rule, then they are not really of Christ. I met last week with a woman who started coming to our church, and she's out now. She'll be out for a number of weeks. If you want her address, I'll give it to you. You can write a card or a letter. She had one knee surgery. She is still healing from that, and then she's having a second one. But she grew up in a very fundamentalist church, and the rules were really tight and really clear. And it was very clear about who was out and who you shouldn't associate with. And that's just a sociological fact that groups define themselves often, almost always, by who they're against, by who they're not. It's a really easy way to establish strong group identity. So it's a lot harder if we're the group Jesus calls to love everyone, because then who are you against? That's tricky. There are certainly social justice issues that we are very much against, that we know we have to say no to. But what about when a neighbor comes in who's very different from us? How do we respond? How do we love? How do we accommodate that difference with grace, with honesty, but with grace? How do we do that? One way we do it is by daring to share our own vulnerabilities. By saying, you know, like, I did this, but when I thought it over, I really wish I'd done that. Right now, I'm feeling really angry, so I'm going to give myself some space to back up, or I'm feeling really tired. I got to have a little bit of a break here. And we can say to one another, what can I do to help? And sometimes there'll be something like, oh, if you just call me once a week, that would help. Or, I need a ride to the doctor's. Or, I don't know what it will be, but we've got to dare to ask, what can I do to help? And keep our own healthy boundaries. There are times when someone will want you to do something that you think, whoa, not that, not me. We've all seen the Facebook meme with the dog with its bulging eyes, and said something about when Jody heard her owner's story, she realized she was not cut out to be a therapy dog. some situations are too much for us. But there are always ways to connect and to find someone else who has the skills that are needed then. That's how God works. And if we're imperfect and we need help, praise God. That's how it's supposed to be. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.